going to take off the pelvic limb or the ham. And what I like to do, you will find in the industry that what they'll do is they'll just run this thing, it'll go on a conveyor and it'll go right across the saw, and it'll just kind of whack right here at a point about halfway between, this is part of the pelvic bone here, and then this is the last of the what we call lumbar vertebrae. They'll kind of go halfway between there. And what they do is they don't cut this square like I described on that end, so this is the one that violates that rule. They tend to cut this in a way that it's kind of halfway between point A and point B, this last straight vertebrae, and the what we call the front leading edge of the H, it's called an H bone, A-I-T-C-H. And they try to cut it at an angle that literally when you set it up when you're done, this leg would be sticking straight up.
So you gotta do a perpendicular cut?
It's not perpendicular, it's just simply cut at an angle. I'll show you.
So what you want to think about, keep going.
Yeah.
What you want to think about is as you're removing this piece, Ron talked about squaring up. Well, you're actually squaring up the ham.
Right. That's a good way to describe it. Yep.
So that leg does stick straight up. It won't perfectly sit straight up right now because that H-bone will still be in there. But once you take that H-bone out and do a little bit of trimming, you have a ham that will stand with the leg up. Why is that good? Well, for chefs, we can carve that ham. And so it works out nice when we do it that way. So this is actually squared up to this and not to that.
Yeah, it's literally kind of like when we start talking about it also, and that's a great point. Another thing that we do is when outside of chef world, but in the cutting world of trying to make what we call center ham slices, which have been done a lot in the past. Yeah. Spiral, either spiral or just literally just a center ham slice that's packaged up as a center ham slice. Those would come off going right through this, kind of like in this way, and that makes, to Paul's point, it really kind of maximizes the yield of all this volume of muscle right through here to get that yielded out, okay? So it's literally, you're almost cutting parallel to the direction of the H-bone, not quite. But anyway, so it's kind of like doing that, okay? So we're gonna match that more or less with a cut like this, okay? And again, about halfway between point A and point B.
Halfway?
Yeah, about halfway.
Got it.
So what I heard years ago was that they said that in the industry at times when they're going through a volume of cutting, that they would sometimes, the industry would vary where they made that cut as far as their tolerances in the standards. But it said it had to be at least X far from this part and X far from that part, but there was some wiggle room in the middle. And a guy that I knew that used to work in the industry a lot, I think he was, with the company he worked for, they would move that cut a little bit depending on where the market was at the time, and when there was the market was advantage to literally loins were selling for more money, they were getting a better margin out of this part than they were getting out of the hams, then they would shift that cut over and just shift just a little bit of weight over to the loins. And when the market was for whatever reason favoring hams, they'd shift that cut a little bit over to that way, just change that weight distribution a little bit. And if they did it if they moved to half a pound of product, well, if they were cutting 2,000 hogs that day, that starts to add up. Before long, you're talking about real money, okay? So that's one of the reasons. Now, whenever you grab a saw, you can either look at the saw or you can experience the saw to see if whoever put the blade in the saw put it in correctly. Because whoever put the blade in this saw did not put it in correctly. Saws, with few exceptions, there are exceptions, but most hand saws cut on the push. They don't cut on the pull. And if you look at the teeth on this blade, the way they're in there, and by the way, I will guarantee you, I will do this to you. Because I do this to you, okay? If you go to saw with that thing, with the teeth going the wrong direction, then you're gonna find that, you know, the first thing you do when you go to make a saw cut is it just slides right across and doesn't grab anything, but when you go to pull it back, it's catching. And that's because it's gotta be in to where you cut on the push.
And we cut through bone, not meat.
Correct.
So you don't hear the bone cut anymore, you're on meat, stop, and get your knife out.
Did you hear that?
Yep.
It went soft after that. It's no more bone. So then we pull out. Now, while I've got it going though, I'm gonna go up here. Now this blade's kind of loose in here, which is kind of too bad, but So you'll even once in a while, you'll need to look, and you might have noticed it back there. I kind of tipped the saw some. I was trying to keep that blade kind of going straight.
So
Okay.
Ron, what rib are you cutting on?
I'm cutting right in behind the shoulder, really kind of cutting across the third.
The third rib?
I'm cutting across the third rib, but I'm not going between. Huh?
Is it in the inner, between the two
Well-
and three, or is it on the outer side of the third?
Right now, I'm kind of going right through the third.
Where do
I
the
can
ribs
move it up.
start?
Hmm?
I said, where do the ribs start? Like the third rib? Like
This is the
right
rib right here.
Right.
You can look in there and see that rib right there. Okay, and pigs, by the way, will have somewhere generally between 14 and 17 ribs. They do not have a fixed number. Cattle have 13 ribs. Sheep have 13 ribs. I can't remember how many people have. Is it 12? Okay. I saw somebody wearing a shirt with a skeleton on the other day. I wanted to count their shirt, but it was a woman, and I didn't want to get in trouble, so I just stepped away. I happened to see this person in
You
an
know I'm
airport.
videotaping, right?
I know, but I said I didn't do it. I was kind of wanting to count. I was kind of wanting to count because I couldn't remember. It invoked a question on my part.
Same rule. Get through bone, no saw. Nice. What's interesting too is that our primal cuts are very around the world. You get into different parts of the world, and how they cut it up is different. We had a German
yeah,
student here last
absolutely.
year, and
Yeah, totally different
he
approach.
demonstrated how they cut up their pigs in Germany.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to watch. He was an exchange student that was here, and he actually offered to do that for the class. And we said, sure, step up. And he had that thing broken down in probably 15 minutes.
Well, and he did a lot of it on the rail, which
Yes.
is cool.
Oh, really? Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
hanging?
Oh yeah.
I was watching that video and you guys said like each processor does it differently. Like the way you guys are demonstrating it is how you guys been doing it. But
Yes, that's true.
I was just
Well, no, but you have to understand the setup,
correct.
right? So their shops might be able to handle it differently. They're still going to cut the same primals here in the U.S.,
Pretty much, yeah.
but what's going to happen is how they can do it because they have a better setup. We're out here in the kitchen on what, 4 cutting boards,
Right.
trying to show you how to do it. But you still end up with the same thing.
Correct.
And for the most part, most processors in the U.S. cut kind of the same way.
Yeah.
And you, like Paul was saying, you go to another country, they've got a totally different cut chart, a cutting sheet, how they do it. They might take the ham off totally different. Yeah. Everybody's got a lot of different places. What's really neat is if you get a chance to travel and you go to a meat shop or something while you're there, kind of see if they've got a chart somewhere. That can be kind of fun to look at.
Well, actually, I since you're all in the program and you are traveling, I'm telling you, you have to go to a butcher shop. You have to go check it out. It's a really worthwhile experience. See that?
Bum bum bum.
It's squared up.
Yeah. So that's a fresh ham. The only thing that I would still do to this fresh ham is I'd probably go ahead while I had it here. I'd probably go ahead and take this tail vertebrae off. Just kind of slide in right underneath here. Just kind of.
You're just cutting the tail off?
Yeah, I'm just taking the tail on off. What's left of it there. Just take that off because it really doesn't need to be there. And we'll.
So is that entire thing, is that entirely a bone, or is there some meat in there?
No.
Well, there's not much in there. There's a little bit of muscle of the
it's
tail, but it's
It's how the tail's connected to the
Yeah.
body there.
right. Okay, and so that's our ham. Now, what we can do, and we can do this. We'll probably do this later, unless you want to do it now.
I don't know which.
We can also take this what's called the shank portion of the pork hock off. And what we can do on that is now they left this part on because they want to be able to hang it by this what's called a gambrel tendon back here, or Achilles tendon. We can also those can also be taken off, just a little shorter. If we want to take off the pork hock, very often we'll go all the way up in here and we'll cut through what's called a joint. It's called a stifle joint. We'll cut through that, and then we'll kind of go at an angle out there so that we don't get into this. But it's really kind of nice, depending on what we're going to do with this, to leave that on there for now.
Yeah, so
Until we figure
tonight
out-
we're going to leave them on.
Yep.
The main thing tonight is I want you to be able to get these broken down into their primals. All right, that's the goal.
So by the way, another thing of note for you to reference. See this here?
Lymph node?
That is a lymph node. Okay, here's another part of it. This you'll always find one down in here in this kind of this flank area. Okay, lymph nodes. It's good that when you see a lymph node like this, it's indicative of health on the part of the animal. A lymph node will be a very typical kind of a pale tannish, grayish color like that. It's not enlarged. It doesn't have like a blood filling, a discoloration, any kind of fluid in it or anything like that. That's a perfectly healthy lymph node.
But we do take them out.
We tend to kind of, you trim out the ones you see. And you'll find some along this area right here too. There's a few of them, you know, looking at us as we look at this area above the tenderloin. There's a few laying in this fat. They're just nested in this fat up there. It's not too hard to just kind of get underneath them and just kind of trim and just kind of go ahead and take those off as well. You'll see a few of them. Those are small
So
in there.
let's show them that tender.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So because now the leg is off, any deer hunters in here? So you always take your tender out first, right? When you get inside that carcass? Right, so here, the tender's
So
on,
if you guys are on
leg
that
is
side,
off.
if you want to come around
So
and
you now
look.
you can see that the butt end of the tender, where part of that was still left behind on here.
Right. So this is that tenderloin all the way up there. It starts up here. It's kind of small.